Hello, welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions or comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page for episode 130, Ordo Templi Orientis. As for me, my name is John Ruart, past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia. I'll hand it off to Robert Johnson for his introduction.
Hello, everybody. Robert Johnson, past master of the Waukegan Lodge. I said the Waukegan Lodge like it's the Patriot Lodge. Past master of Waukegan Lodge, number 78, in Waukegan, Illinois, where I am the current secretary. And back to you, John.
Thank you, Robert. Fun fact, the is on our charter, the Patriot Lodge. The other Johnson brother, Nick Johnson.
Nick Johnson, past master of Corinthian Lodge, number 67, in Big Time Farmington.
Has been. Thank you, Nick. Juan Sepulveda, introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everybody. Juan Sepulveda of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Thank you, Juan. Coming to us live from jolly old England, Jason Richards.
Hello, chaps. Jason Richards, Senior Warden of Acacia Lodge number 16, good old Clifton, Virginia, coming to you from an undisclosed location where they all talk like this, and it may or may not be 3 o'clock in the bloody morning.
Enjoy your fish and chips for breakfast.
And they have a good breakfast at the hotel.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's like baked beans, tomatoes, and English bacon. It's pretty legit.
So where's the good breakfast? Is that...
Good, eh?
Sounds delicious.
Last but not least, our special guest for tonight, Anthony Von Wagner. Van Wagner, not sure. I'll let him correct me. He's been
Wilder.
Van Wilder has been a Freemason since 2004. He is a past master of Braden Lodge number 168, AF&AM of Minnesota, and has been involved with O.T.O since 1998. So, Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Great.
And, this is all very new, and it's all very great, actually. Excited to be with you.
We're excited to have you. I know I'm going to learn a lot this episode. Let's go right into Masonic news. We've got quite a bit that's been going on this week in Masonry. So, without further ado, let's go right to Chris Hodap's blog, where we start with an article from the Herald Scotland website, which the Grand Lodge of Scotland shared on their Facebook page, about the growing atheist population may affect the future of Freemasonry. The article goes on to say that, according to a recent survey, there have been many people that are unaffiliated with any specific religion, and as we know, Freemasonry requires a belief in a supreme being, usually God, and so we want to consider this as a data point as we go further with the craft. What have you guys seen about this, heard about this? Jump right on in.
So, John, real quick, I have a pretty big beef with this article just because they're equating irreligious or non-religious to atheism, and that's just simply not the case. You find a great uptick today, generationally, in those members of the population who would consider themselves to be very spiritually minded, to have some sort of a belief in a supreme being that would satisfy the Masonic entry requirements in most grand jurisdictions. However, they're unaffiliated with any organized religion, and dare say are just not interested in participating in some sort of organized religion. So I think the article itself is a little bit of a misnomer and making much ado about something that's just, you know, the latest trend in the generational politics of the day.
I'm sure it's just the new scapegoat that the Grand Lodge is trying to ride, so to speak.
The Grand Lodge is a scapegoat, dude?
Well, it looks like it's going to blame atheists now, so that's...
Riding the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this has that argument that, of course, Jason pointed out some really brilliant points, right? I specifically really identify with what Jason said, and it means a lot to me that he said it that way, actually, because I'm a very religious person, but I'm not associated with any religion, and I really appreciate his comments because it kind of lumps the agnostic, it lumps the
Even the
non-believer.
deist to some.
Yeah, it just lumps us all into one group of this, atheism. And in the ancient excuse me, in the ancient charters of Illinois, anyway, I think it's in our ancient charters. It says a stupid atheist, right? It actually uses those terms. I'm not calling atheists stupid, but I just find that this argument of, and John, you were a huge person who talked about these poll results recently, where this massive percentage of Americans who are the prime target of Freemasonry actually don't believe or don't attend church or whatever it was, and I think they're catching on to that over there maybe, and they're really feeling that this is the latest thing that we can attribute our loss in membership to. It has nothing to do with us and our politics and the way we govern and our many hats and the levels of Freemasonry. It has everything to do with it's not our fault.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's
just to echo what Jason said, bad polling because it's a skewed question.
Well, and it's clearly written from a point of view that I think is removed from the millennial generation, because the implicit and explicit assumptions in the article are that if you do not prescribe to organized religion, vis-a-vis major denominations of Christianity and or Judaism, etc., then you are atheist, and there's no middle ground, and that really is a generational viewpoint. That's just incompatible with reality today of the millennial generation.
Right, so moving on. The Olympics ended this week, and one piece of news that I was able to dig up was a video from, I believe, 2010, 2011, where it showed Usain Bolt, fastest man in the world, doing a little DJ promo, sharing his favorite DJ tricks and what's your favorite track, that kind of stuff. But as they zoomed into him on his mixer, he was wearing a Masonic ring.
Dun, dun, dun.
Conspiracy theories, were let loose, and here's our favorite one that showed up. So, although again, this is a little bit old news as far as this video of him, and you can see there tweaking the decks with his Masonic ring on. It's if you have a Masonic ring, then automatically he has sold his soul to Satan.
Yeah. What bothers me the most is that he's wearing it incorrectly.
Bro, you didn't just go there.
So this is no longer the O.T.O show. Welcome to How to Wear Your Ring.
Welcome into points in, points out, but I must say, you had to wear them points in to reduce drag, right? So.
True story, yeah. That's a really good point.
Called physics.
Yeah, but a lot of people commented on it, and some people instantly said, "Oh my God, I'm so proud. He's a brother." They instantly assume that because he's wearing the ring, he's a brother, and other people said the other thing. Oh, just because he has a ring, you can buy a ring at the flea market if you want to. Do we have any evidence? And a lot of people were asking, "Do you have any proof? Do you have any proof?" Nobody, out of the hundreds and hundreds of comments and replies, not a single shred of evidence. So, as much as
right.
him,
it's kind of like, did we ever figure out if Ashton Kutcher was a bro because he was wearing like the Masonic hat while he was at a basketball game and he goes several places with it on? Is there proof to that?
Yeah,
He works with the Masons in Iowa too.
there
That's why that one's.
there are photos of him at like a lodge event where there are other guys with square and compasses on.
Well,
Interesting.
and he's a big fan of the show as well.
Oh,
So,
Huge fan.
huge fan. Usain Bolt listens to TMR regularly, so I mean, cool.
That's quotable.
he uses it to train.
Listens to it while he's running.
there's one theory that I thought, oh, that's interesting, because the video was about DJing, and there's a popular DJ group called the Freemasons. So I wonder if he was paying homage to that. And the brother that posted that said, this is a stretch, but when I read it, I'm like, you know what? It's not that far of a stretch. So,
Right.
Fun fact, I listened to the Freemasons album the day I was raised.
okay.
Hero dance stuff. Moving into
Another
What album
fun
is
fact,
this again?
John has terrible taste in music.
True story.
I
Just
love
kidding.
you guys.
Just kidding, John. You and I both enjoy French house.
You know, I can kick you off the show at any time. The slip of the mouse. But I won't, because I'm above that. I'm better than you guys. Moving on, we have other news up in the Northern Masonic jurisdiction. I know this has been passed on very quickly. It's kind of a big deal. Robert, why don't you talk to us about the next sovereign Grand Commander of the Northern Masonic jurisdiction?
Well, John, it all started when McNaughton decided that he was going to announce his successor a year before it happened. So a lot of times people jump on people's backs for using the term unprecedented when they don't know what that term is. This is unprecedented, though. So the Supreme Council of the Northern Jurisdiction, 15 states, essentially nominated illustrious Brother Glatley to lead the Northern Masonic jurisdiction for the next however many years. McNaughton will be stepping down next year. I've heard speculation that there's going to be huge changes within the Northern jurisdiction. However, the verbiage that they're giving is that they're working together over the next year to come up with the best way to, quote-unquote, return the fraternity to its roots of, like, assisting...
Video degrees. To its roots of video degrees.
Assisting, I believe the verbiage is like assisting in, keeping brotherly love apparent, really focusing on fraternity rather than philosophical side of things, and this is
Which
really,
is an invention, a generational invention on the fraternity.
to be honest with you, in my own personal feeling, it is a bit of an innovation because the Scottish Rite has long been called the College of Freemasonry. You would associate college with learning, with the philosophies and further degree, further light, that kind of thing. The Northern jurisdiction has taken over the course of years a different direction. And since the beginning of their published degrees, and they were using the Franken manuscripts, and they have taken a position where they feel that they are allowed to change degrees as the attention spans of their candidates it gets diminished over time. So what they do is they keep shortening things up, and they're trying to keep it current. But I'm not sure that that's the direction. I don't think that's the direction that they got when they sent out a survey a few months back. So I don't know what they're going to do. I'm looking forward to see what happens. I have, just as much faith and hope in the Northern jurisdiction's decision to make that move as anybody else. I'm hoping it goes well.
Okay. Let's move on to the next topic tonight. We try to stay out of anything controversial. So up next is a naked statue of Donald Trump.
Yes,
What does this have to do with Freemasonry? Well, a lot, actually, when a couple of nude Trump statues appear with Masonic rings on and wearing only Masonic rings in various cities around the nation.
Now, just to be clear, the ring's around his finger.
But is he wearing it the right way?
Yep. He sure is.
Negativo.
So, is Trump a Mason? Yes or no?
No.
That was quick.
Listen, bro. Wait a minute. I was going to say I don't know any Masons that toot their horn that much, but I do.
Who was the artist of this? Was it somebody? Because using a Masonic symbol for wealth and power is so totally a English concept. A great a British concept, because at least in the United States, nobody really views Masonry as this cheeky secret society of handshakes and getting out of parking tickets the same way. So that was the part that really was just bizarre to me, that this particular artist went that way, So.
All right, I have here the name of the artist is Joshua Monroe, and I found an article that describes he's behind a project described as the American Activist Collective called In Decline. So all the statues are signed as In Decline. And if I'm not mistaken, it is an American artist, so it's not.
So it's very controversial. Obviously, I think they're trying to make a political statement, Illuminati and all that crap. No, to our knowledge, Trump is not a Mason, nor would he pass any sort of sanity check for intention. Let's just put it that way.
Depends on the jurisdiction.
Very true.
Listen, I know Masons. They love me. I win. It's huge. They gave me the 33rd degree one night. It was amazing. I won.
Mr. Trump, this statue is representative of you being in the 1% of the 1%. Right there on your finger is a ring.
If winning is wrong,
I don't want to be right.
I'm still right.
I don't know why, but I love Nick's Bernie Sanders person.
It is so good.
I am so bummed out that he is out of the race, just because now I have to shelve that one too.
We could have had 4 years of Nick Johnson as Bernie Sanders. Okay, last but not least, we have hot off the press from the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, and the Colonial Lodge, 1821, in the D.C. metro area. We have the Mid-Atlantic Convocation of Academic Lodges. Yay! So, what is this? We have a couple of academic lodges. We've talked about that in a previous episode. And in order to share lessons learned about standing up new academic lodges, as well as learn from the university scheme in England, we have, for the first time in the Mid-Atlantic region, not all the way up in the Northeast, we have our own convocation get together. There are a couple universities that are looking at getting academic lodges as well, trying to get all the paperwork done and get under dispensation. So this October 1st, there will be a couple of great speakers, myself included. Yeah, so speaking of tooting your own horn, we'll have
the incorrect use of the reflexive case, but
is that all you have to contribute from London?
Yes, at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yes.
All right. But the good news is, for those who will be there, this will be the first time I'm rolling out a presentation based off of the Masonic survey that you guys took this summer. It's unfortunately a short, only half an hour, 40 minutes that I have, so it won't be the full shebang, but I think there's some great data that I'll have ready October 1st.
I think 30 minutes is a golden number, and I really think, excuse me, not to be critical, but I know you geek out on the numbers, and I geek out on the numbers, but I would love to see this presentation. Are they going to stream it? Do you know, or?
We're thinking about that. It is a paid event to cover speaker fees and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to do my best to record it for sure. But we'll figure out the logistics as far
I
as.
think this is going to be. I can't wait to hear some of your results, man. So thanks for doing the survey.
So my plan is to definitely have the TED Talk 18-minute kind of version, right?
Yeah.
Because that's about as long as human attention can really go without drifting off. And so I'll have a much more detail that I'll try to get published or put in a much longer version, just archived away if someone wants to see that. But yeah, stay tuned. So there we are. If you want to register for that, go to academiclodge.org and hit the register link. academiclodge.org. That's all we got for Masonic News, as if that wasn't enough. Nick, send us over to our favorite trivia game show, the Masonic Monday question.
On Tuesday.
Hey, how's it going? All right, so last week's question was kind of an interesting one. It was, how was the French Rite re-imported back into France? And the answer to that question was Brazil. Obviously, it was topical considering the Olympics. So congratulations to Blake Leach. We have Blake Leach who answered it correctly. We have Joey Boyer, Ed Potter, and Helio Lopez da Costa, who is from Vancouver. So thank you very much, guys. You guys sent in some excellent responses. So here is the question for the week of 8/22/2016. The mystic aspects of Freemasonry were truly convoluted during the early period of organized speculative craft. A number of bodies and degree systems were attempting to edge each other out in members. Most were irregular, some were clandestine, but all liked to harken back to a number of ancient societies and mystic realms. This Freemason developed a decidedly Egyptian motif in his own system. He was also the self-styled chief of the Rosicrucians, and during his interrogation during the Inquisition, made many revelations concerning the Illuminati and his own degree systems. The Church convicted him in 1789 and sentenced him to death. That sentence later commuted to life imprisonment. He died 4 years later. Who was this Freemason? When you have the answer, send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name, lodge number, and the hashtag, "Are there any good movies to watch this week?" Thank you, John.
Thanks, Nick. Anthony, let's get right into this week's topic.
Okay.
Describe for us, please, what the Ordo Templi Orientis is and how it works. Take it away.
Well, right now I view the Ordo Templi Orientis as one of those organizations that's just really influenced by Masonry and doesn't really have an intimate connection anymore with it. There are many initiatory organizations out there, like different Rosicrucian groups, even certain forms of Wicca, even institutions like the unions in the past century that were influenced, believe it or not, by Freemasonry. And I think the O.T.O is now one of those organizations that we can say Freemasonry had a lot of influence on. But, you know, it was begun by some continental Freemasons. And it really got going in the early 1900s. You have Karl Kellner figures like Theodore Royce, and then Aleister Crowley, most famously. And when Aleister Crowley gets involved, it incorporates what he received as the law of Thelema into the O.T.O. So,
can you expand on what the law of Thelema is? And
sure. Most people who know Thelemites and people who are interested in Aleister Crowley know the phrase "Do what thou wilt shall be held the whole of the law," and also "Love is the law, love under will," and they'll hear this as greetings from people who adhere to the law of Thelema. And there's a lot of misconceptions about this. A lot of people will think that these words mean just do what you want to do as you please. And Crowley's actually pretty clear about this in the writings, that it's not that at all. It's a law of freedom, but it's also a philosophy that's very strict. You have to do what you feel is find your true purpose beyond distractions, beyond a lot of the things that come up in everyday life that keep people from doing what they feel their true purpose is, and
promoting anarchy, right?
Yeah. It's about finding a harmony within the self and also harmony with others, and beyond distractions you find your true purpose, and it's about actually taking action on that instead of doing things that you might feel that you just want to do. It's not a carefree philosophy.
So this is a fraternal organization as well, I assume?
Yeah, there's the O.T.O is an initiatory organization, and originally, I said that right now I see it as Freemasonry having an influence and inspiration on the O.T.O, but originally it was formed by Freemasons who meant it as a compendium of different schools of thought that were happening in Freemasonry, like different interests at different times, such as Rosicrucianism, ideas of the degrees of Memphis Mizraim, also creeping in, and within 10 degrees, fitting in some of the more important, what they thought were the more important ideas. And then once Aleister Crowley got involved, he actually he really rewrote much of what was there, and pretty much turned it into an organization that centered around promulgating the law of Thelema as he saw it.
Now, was O.T.O the one that had the 3 craft degrees as well? Or am I thinking of Memphis Mizraim?
There was a time, I think what happened was before 1919, you had something very similar to the 3 craft degrees going on in the O.T.O. And Aleister Crowley went to Detroit and he was actually getting a lot of interest, and some Scottish Rite Freemasons wanted to join, and he wanted to have them in the O.T.O. And there was a feeling at that time that these degrees were too close to the Blue Lodge degrees, and so he actually rewrote them. So you're no longer talking about the Temple of King Solomon or the legends surrounding that, the building of it, but something else entirely. I'm not exactly comfortable talking about, but
so it's not King Solomon, it's King Balaam, right? So
it's something else entirely. It's something else entirely.
But it sounds like it has a lot of philosophic, introspective concepts in there that complement Freemasonry.
It might be it may sound like a simple idea, but if you get into the literature, it actually gets quite complex, and there's a lot of different ideas. What really attracted me to the system was just this syncretism that was involved. You can explore Rosicrucianism, you can explore different thoughts of the Hindu religion, and you can explore alchemy and different Hermetic philosophies, and also you get to know the brothers and sisters in the order, and they're very knowledgeable, and it's great to share our ideas with them.
So it is co-ed then?
Yeah, that is a big difference.
Well, that helps. Is that a distraction?
It just makes it a different kind of organization than Freemasonry entirely when you have that. I think it helps a great deal. You get a lot of wisdom from the women.
Interesting. All right.
You know, there's things in Freemasonry that I feel like you can talk about when you're just among men, but you know, with a co-ed organization, you're getting just a bunch of different experiences and a bunch of different interactions.
Great.
And I'm trying to figure out how the organization is actually divvied up. Is there like a philosophical aspect, then kind of a spiritual aspect, quasi, I'll put it in quotations, religious aspect or ecclesiastical aspect?
Yeah, there's a big debate out there whether it's a philosophy or a religion, because you can find Crowley referring to it as a religion a number of times, but then in a book many people have, Magic Without Tears, he talks about it that if you refer to it as a religion, it's kind of a silly kind of mischief. But there's a pantheon, there's a holy book, the Book of the Law. There's everything that you would have in what you would call a religion, and then there's also an ecclesiastical arm, a church, the Gnostic Catholic Church, which is intimately involved with the O.T.O, and really just an arm of it.
So let's open up for some questions here. Juan, you have any questions?
Brother Anthony, I did notice a little bit of caution in your part when you were delineating the contrast of the King Solomon's Temple and whatever the storyline is within the O.T.O. That makes me think, how much similar is it to Masonry when it comes to discretion? Is it very secretive? And if so, how do you keep that within wraps, and how do you keep people to observe their discretion in the process?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit more discreet, and maybe that's just the amount of years involved with each organization. I find that the brothers and the sisters of the O.T.O tend to keep the degree secrets under tight wraps, and that's for the initiate, so it doesn't ruin the experience. How do they keep this discretion? I don't know what the mechanism would be, because there's not some iron hand that's going to come down. The worst that's going to happen to a person is that they'll perhaps be expelled if they give out the secrets.
But it's clear to everybody within it what is secret and what isn't, right?
I think there are certain things that are pretty clear.
Okay.
What occurs during the degrees, it's pretty clear that that's going to be secret.
So I've got a question for you, Anthony. Just looking through some of my research, found some interesting similarities between at least some of the degree names of the O.T.O and actually the Bavarian Illuminati. Specifically, the first degree is called the Minerval, and there's actually Illuminati that comes up in several degrees. To what extent that you know of was O.T.O actually influenced by Adam Weishaupt's organization?
Well, I think there was a resurgence. I think it was the late 1800s, and it might have been Karl Kellner or Royce. I don't remember which one. It was involved in trying to make a reemergence of the Illuminati, or what they thought, and they wanted to incorporate some of these ideas into the O.T.O degrees. And what you have is, with the Minerval degree, obviously with the name of it, it's identical. My friend, the late Jiva Singh, he actually put out a book with the authentic rituals of the Illuminati translated. And
Joe Wages is a good friend of the show.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, we had him on for our Illuminati episode.
Oh, excellent. And I think what you're getting is limited to that one degree, and I think what you're getting is some of the ideas of the original Illuminati. I think, I'm no expert on it, but I think that when they tried to reintroduce it in the late 1800s, you were talking about a different sort of organization altogether.
So, Robert, I know you've had a lot of research on this topic as well. Anything you have for our guest?
Not specifically on the Illuminati. I do have a question, and Anthony, I guess I would preface this with, I absolutely understand if you would not answer the question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. So anybody who does research on O.T.O, right? I mean, we've got so many people that'll listen to the show and research the topics that we're talking about, and if you just type in like Ordo Templi Orientis or O.T.O and ritual, Google automatically thinks Motorola, and then you have to say no, Ordo Templi Orientis. But the first things that come up are, you get these websites that are horrible for Freemasons and any fraternal order alike, which is like above top secret, right, where everything is controlled by Illuminati lizard people, right? And so within the O.T.O, some of the first things that come up are just these wild, stories of things like sex magic and Anthony Crowley and all of these, quote-unquote hot grades within the O.T.O. And I feel like maybe the listeners would like to hear what's the real deal? What's the story? I mean, what would you say about those things? Like if I just said, here's a search query on O.T.O, like how would we talk about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of bad information out there, especially it kind of reminds me of what happens with Freemasonry.
Right.
And there is a component, I mean, the O.T.O purpose of it to promulgate the law of Flema, but also for the initiates to gradually learn its central secret, which is supposedly a technique of sexual magic,
right.
And different formulas of it. And I'm not privy to that because I haven't attained those degrees. So,
well, I mean, so like in religious aspects throughout the world, right? I mean, in the Hindu religion and all over Middle East, you've got all kinds. I mean, we talk about sex magic and people kind of go nuts, right? And we've talked about it on my show a couple times, and people don't understand. They just think like, oh, wild, crazy, They think Eyes Wide Shut or something crazy. And but no, I mean, there's ancient law of like tantric stuff, and it all
Kama Sutra.
Yeah, like comes back to energies and all these kind of things and thought processes. So I know you said, you haven't gone to those degrees and things, but would you kind of say that perhaps it could be something along those lines, and
Yeah, I think a lot of people encounter what I believe to be the sacred. I mean, it gets rediscovered by different figures at different points in history. And, you can call it alchemical, you can call it tantric.
Sure.
If you study that subject, you're going to find some materials on it. And it's funny, people go crazy over two subjects, sex and
right.
death, I find.
Yeah.
And
how accurate.
They're the two most basest of human experiences. Sorry, go ahead.
You just kind of want to tell people to kind of, settle down, grow up a little, and it may be a big deal, but really, is it that big of a deal that you have to go crazy about it and make up all these wild rumors?
Right.
Look, if we can't determine if Usain Bolt is a Freemason and which way he wears his ring, then obviously sex magic is going to be at the top of the list too. So.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I was trying to figure out. Okay, so in my research, and I know, as I believe you're a deacon in it, of the ecclesiastical side. And could you
Yeah, I was
explain
ordained a
that?
deacon some years ago.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out the religious side, well, religious side, because I don't know if it is or not, or if you would consider it that ecclesiastical at least, and anything else that's within the organization. Is it classified as some kind of religious, you know, part? So there's weddings and things like that. And
Yeah. There's different. There's weddings. There's baptisms. There's ordinations. Um, there's confirmations. So
okay,
yeah, it does function
as a religion then.
as a church. Yeah.
Okay,
And
sure.
again, a lot of people in the organization, like I said, there's this debate of whether they want to call it a religion or a philosophy. I think you can call it a religion, and like I said, it bothers some people.
Well, so if you say it's similar to Freemasonry in the sense of what I'm hearing and not knowing anything else about it, that is
Yeah.
a system of philosophy or system of morality, right? Then your philosophy extends a little bit further with a specific path to attain some higher degree of consciousness, right? Is that a fair statement?
Well, I would say that I wouldn't call it similar to Freemasonry. I would say that it's influenced, and again, inspired by Freemasonry.
I meant only in the fact that there is a system of progression.
Yeah. In that way, yeah, there's a system of progression, and there's more illumination, more light that's gained as you go on.
So the big differentiator for me is that Freemasonry doesn't teach you salvation. It does not tell you a path to salvation and an eternal life. Right?
Yeah, and I don't think Thelema or the O.T.O really teaches you a path of salvation or gives you some sort of vicarious atonement either.
That's not a religion then. It's a very deep philosophical order, but maybe
Yeah. And
Is
at the same time, you have a pantheon, you have a holy book, you have different rites that would seem
ritual.
religious.
Mm-hmm.
is the definition of a religion something that offers salvation, or is that just something that's adhered that's the idea of it within the idea of just say Christianity?
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, it's not exactly the idea of religion. It's more of a Christianized.
Here comes the definition. The religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. What say you, Anthony?
There are gods that are worshipped.
Okay then.
Well, and I mean Theravada Buddhism, I believe, is the one that essentially functions that there is no God. So I mean, this concept of what is a religion, I mean, you should see the different cases that have come forward saying what what is a religion, because obviously, at least for tax purposes, etc. It becomes an important question, and so it's very complicated on what is or isn't. And I definitely O.T.O has aspects, at least from what I'm hearing, that it's definitely something that could be considered a religion and something that really
Listen,
pushes forward this,
if you want to know what classifies as religion, ask the IRS. They're the only ones with a definitive answer.
Exactly.
And I think we are classified as a religious, or at the very least a nonprofit organization. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of fascinating because I was reading kind of how the organization is structured in such a way that you're right. I think it has a lot of inspiration taking from Freemasonry, but it also seems to be taking inspiration from a lot of organizations at that time. So you've got a grand body that's national, you've got an international, and I think how does that affect you, at least in terms of at a local level? How does national function to do they push ideas upon you, or is it kind of localized so each a different place gets to decide kind of how it will practice and what kind of philosophies it'll explore?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't know if you guys bring it up on this, but there's always kind of at least in Freemasonry, there's always this the lodge versus Grand Lodge and how it relates to it. And there is a Grand Lodge in the O.T.O, but it functions a little differently, I think. And I think the lodge masters of the O.T.O have a bit more control locally than a Freemason. It's not. They don't go through the same process of election that we do in a regular Blue Lodge. There are different processes. So yeah, there's guidance, there's direction that comes from national and international entities in the O.T.O. And it's a very small group too. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but you're talking about the thousands.
And so, Anthony, how does the church fit into this? Is it a governance body? Is it more of a philosophical, spiritual guide of the order? How does your role as a deacon kind of help enhance the experience for others?
So mostly the central public rite that is performed from the O.T.O is the Gnostic Mass, Liber 15, and this is what is performed officially by the clergy of the EGC, and there is a relationship. It's to say become a deacon, you have to have a certain degree within the O.T.O to be ordained. To become a priest or priestess within the church and become ordained, you have to have a certain degree within the O.T.O. So there is a relationship. What you're mostly seeing with the EGC though is you're in my opinion, you're seeing the Gnostic Mass, which is it's a beautiful ritual, in my opinion. And if you ever get the opportunity to see it, I heartily recommend you do go and see it.
This is a good segue now for our social media aspect of the show, because a specific question was asked about the Gnostic Mass of the O.T.O. By Taylor Kleinig, in the sense that he said he's heard some disconcerting things about the Gnostic Mass of the O.T.O. regards to communion. Can you tell us more about that? You talked about other rituals such as marriages, baptisms, etc. What specifically can you talk about regarding the communion aspect?
Yeah, they're probably talking about what is taken as far as the cakes and the wine. Sometimes the cakes will include blood, and yeah, I can understand why that might concern some people. There are ways of handling it so that we can ensure the health of our members. It's either you're preparing your own communion or to take yourself, or you are really just dealing with ashes that are mixed in of what was blood, ashes of it mixed into the next meal that's put into the cakes, which are taken during the Mass. So yeah, it's kind of an important question.
Mm-hmm. But it's meant symbolically to be like normal communion, I guess, in that aspect of the representation of the blood, right? But
yeah.
A literal and figurative symbol.
Yeah, and did the person who asked the question, did he point to that exactly, or?
Not specifically, but since you jumped right on that, I would assume that's the sticking.
Yeah.
The next question is, has the O.T.O changed since the death of Crowley?
Yeah, I think it has changed quite a bit. It's always changing.
Better for worse? I mean, what do you think has been...
I think mostly for the better. You have greater numbers coming in. You have more people getting interested, and I think you're getting less of say, a drug culture that might have existed more within the 70s and 80s in the O.T.O. And then very strict regulations, speaking of international and national leadership coming down, saying that these things are just simply not allowed in our group.
Yeah, that's good. The last question on social media before we start to wrap things up is, does it attempt to convert? And I'll add to that in the sense of, we really didn't talk about how do you join the O.T.O. Is it an invite-only thing? Do you have to know a guy who knows a guy? And then does it push an evangelical type aspect on that? So
no, it doesn't seek to convert at all.
Okay.
But there is promulgation, which is different. So you're not going to get a hard sell, and or at least you shouldn't.
So if I'm joining, where would I go? What would I do?
I would actually just get online and go to the official O.T.O site and look for the local bodies, see what's near you. Start talking to whoever's in charge of the local body. See if you can talk to them. Get to know the people involved, and really get to know the material that's recommended for reading before you jump in, I think. So you got to find out if it's right for you. It was something I became incredibly interested in, like I said, because I was interested in the syncretic aspect of it, and was interested in pulling together different things that I was interested in the Hermetic sciences. So that's what led me there, and hopefully you'll never get someone who's pushing things on you. That's just not our way.
Good. Well, Brother Anthony, I do appreciate you coming on the show. We could talk about this for hours, I'm sure, but you've been a wealth of information with what you are allowed to share, and I think it's been enlightening for the rest of us. So let's start wrapping things up by going to Robert Johnson to give us his final thoughts. Robert.
Final thoughts, O.T.O. Where's the petition? Just kidding. Just kidding. It sounds amazing, and when I was 22 years old, I read a great book about Aleister Crowley, which is, I may be mistaken, but I believe it was actually by Aleister Crowley, like a biography type book, or possibly it was a book of his poetry, which was quite interesting. But as the O.T.O is not just Aleister Crowley, I understand that. The O.T.O sounds fascinating. I know several members myself, all of whom, very much like Brother Anthony has pointed out, have never been pushy, have never offered to tell me, let me tell you about the O.T.O. If I've asked about it, they've been more than receptive in talking about what they can talk about. And I think it's important for the listeners and the people who are watching this live or syndicated to understand that anything that you may have heard that may be concerning to you, that's okay. This is a system probably like many other systems out there in the world, which may have practices that are different from our own. And because things are different, it's human nature to shy away or to think about them or whatever. And it's our due diligence to try to understand and do our own research and see things for what they are. I just really want to thank Brother Anthony for coming on and answering our questions. I mean, to answer some of the questions that we asked tonight are certainly things that would have put me, like if I had to answer them, I would be very nervous. So
Well, I was nervous.
yeah, so I'll tell you, just huge thanks. You handled it like a champ. Great job, really. Thanks so much, and thanks to all the listeners out there and people watching the show. Really appreciate it. If you like Masonic podcasts, check out Whence Came You, Sunday nights, 9:30. And other than that, I'll be at Lodge.
Hashtag go to Lodge.
Hashtag go to Lodge. Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
Nick Bennett, fellow Minnesotan.
Sure. I've known Anthony, Worship Brother Anthony, for a very long time, really long time. So it's really good, at least with this conversation, to kind of understand another aspect of my fellow brother, somebody who I've worked with in the quarries before, and it's true. I mean, just like what Worship Brother Anthony was saying, that there is a public rite, the Gnostic Mass, and I looked it up right now online, and there's one close by that you can actually witness it. It appears that it happens fairly frequently. And it's a public ceremony. So for me, I live in a pluralistic society known as the United States of America, and so I'm always fascinated to see different practices, and that's kind of why I was kind of digging into how does this function versus something else. And it's mostly because I come from a background of loving comparative religion and kind of understanding how things work. There's a former Lutheran pastor. He was actually a bishop, and he actually developed this three-pronged approach of understanding other different religions. And the final one is this concept of religious envy. So it's this idea that what is one aspect of another religion you wish you could have. And I think this idea of a public side and a private side is absolutely fascinating. I really do find that to be, this idea that you're within almost a mystery school and you're sharing knowledge with other people that are attuned to the vibrations of the gods is just fascinating. So thank you very much, Anthony. You've been
You're welcome.
an absolute fantastic guest, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Juan Sepulveda.
And Brother Anthony, very good having you with us and shedding a little bit of light on such an interesting topic. Thank you for taking the time and for being so open with your answers. We completely respect that there are things that you have to keep protected for the benefit of those who come later and have an unbiased initiatic experience. So we look forward to chatting with you in the future more about this.
Thank you.
And for the brothers that have any questions regarding the topic that perhaps we weren't able to cover tonight, or if you're watching a replay or listening to the podcast, make sure to let us know what you think, what your questions are, and we'll try to make sure that Brother Anthony has access to them and perhaps find some answers for you. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for getting the Masonic Roundtable. We just have 9,000 likes on Facebook. If you're listening to this and you haven't liked our page yet, this is your cue. Head over to facebook.com/The Masonic Roundtable and click on like. It's one of the best ways for you to stay in touch and figure out what's happening. Actually, we're 7 away, so if you want to be the lucky number 9,000, hop on right now.
And tell everybody how much you love Juan's 5 o'clock shadow, because that is outstanding.
Oh, thank you very much.
Handsome.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna pretend that you mean that.
We're brothers, I do mean it.
I appreciate it. Okay, so very important. finally, after many months of wait, I have an episode of the Winding Stairs coming up, and this one is gonna be so freaking awesome.
It's happening.
It's happening, finally happening. It's taking a little bit longer than it should have, but I guarantee you it's the meta and potatoes. WindingStairs.com. Make sure that you follow what we do. I want to share very quick the picture for the brothers that are watching on YouTube or wherever we're sharing our page. Here is a little sneak peek. How do I do this? Here we go.
Watching.
Here, can you see it?
Now we can. Drinking from the
Nice.
fire hose.
That dude is getting blasted. So who am I in that picture?
You are the one-day class candidate receiving the sudden burst of light to the face. So the topic
That's so apropos. Thank you.
the topic of discussion is going to be one-day classes, and we have data to back up some of our claims here on the Masonic Roundtable and the Winding Stairs. So don't miss it. Go to thewindingstairs.com, and if you're on iTunes or any other podcast player, make sure to subscribe so you can listen to it.
You had me at data. Jason.
All right, Brother Anthony, I'll echo everyone else's sentiments. Thank you so much for coming on and being willing just to demystify the organization a bit, because I see O.T.O as up there with in a lot of ways Freemasonry as far as public preconceived notions and misinformation. So I found this really, really helpful just to be able to break down, what it is, what it isn't. And so thank you so much for coming on and being willing to have a conversation with us about that.
You're welcome.
So as far as I'm concerned, I really find it very, very interesting to delve into the organizations that took cues or were directly influenced by the Masonic fraternity, because Brother Tony Silvio out in New England does a great presentation. We're going to try to get him on the TMR at some point on the esoteric influence of Masonry and how Masonry and Masonic ideals kind of propagated to organizations and initiatic organizations.
Yeah.
And so it's oh, go ahead.
I find that fascinating as well. Like I was bringing up the unions as one of those institutions that was really influenced by Freemasonry, and I was actually surprised about Wicca too. I guess I shouldn't have been. And when you find just where Freemasonry influences things in our society, even certain forms of government thought in the United States government, it's just it's fascinating. It's a fascinating thing. And I think a lot of that kind of leads back to, I find people in the O.T.O who get fascinated by Freemasonry, and I find people more in the O.T.O who are actually led towards Freemasonry than the other way around, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
They become interested in those roots.
Yeah, everyone has their own path, it sounds like.
So, in addition, I want to talk a little bit just about social taboos and the idea of social taboos, because Brother Taylor from Ohio, hit on one of those social taboos of, bodily fluids, etc., in religious circles. But then you have the Catholic doctrine of transubstantiation, which explicitly assumes that once you take the communion elements, they transform into physical blood and flesh. So there are, and then like we were mentioning with the idea of the social taboo of sex magic and its connotations of orgies, whereas we've had the Kama Sutra now for over 1,000 years, several thousands of years, which is inherently a very spiritual work that innately ties spirituality to sexuality. So I see in a lot of ways, I see the O.T.O as reframing some of these classical doctrines and perhaps making them a bit more overt. And it's interesting to see how society or others might recoil at some aspects, but then totally dismiss them in other more long-standing traditions. So that's just something interesting that I picked up on during this episode. But for everybody watching, thanks so much for sticking with us week after week. Let us know what you'd like to hear about. Subscribe to us on Facebook, and let us know how we can make the show better. So back to you, John.
All right. Again, thanks, Anthony, for coming on. Learned a lot. A lot of my misconceptions were actually gone completely because it was much more of a philosophical organization than I originally thought. So thank you very much. Interested in learning more, and that's all I got. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.